The Puma Devite Nitro 2. 100 plus miles deep into the shoe. Is it still good to go, or is it running short? Let's find out. So before we get into the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're already subscribed watching content. Thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Strava for all sorts of updates and things like that. So without further ado, let's begin. Specs for the shoe, somewhere over here, just so you can see them. And first thing we'll look at is the outsoles of the shoes, 100 plus miles. I had some of my own concerns with the way the traction is set up on the outsoles here, specifically the outsole front areas, because as we've discussed previously with the shoe, it doesn't look like necessarily an entirely road shoe design here, because there's a lot of, I guess, traction lugs, which makes you kind of feel like it would be good for some mixed terrain, maybe some gravel perhaps, as opposed to some of the other road race or road running specific shoes like the Boston 11, Boston 12, some Nike brands where it's a lot flatter and it's designed for more repetitive impact. Here, on the other hand, the lugs, my original theory was that they were going to wear out fairly quickly if you were using them on the roads and even on mixed terrain, just because the way they're kind of shaped and just the use of a lug overall is going to wear out quicker than I think like a flatter pad. So right now that theory holds correct, as you can see with my right foot as we kind of focus here. This is the foot that would kind of have this slight over supination in my case. We are wearing a little bit of the flat pad here as we kind of start off with our discussion. And then in this frontal area, as you can see, those lugs are almost completely flattened out. So whenever, I'm landing on the ground and I begin my roll, there must be some kind of slip or kind of a burn that's occurring here. It's not specific as to whether I'm cutting into the ground like this and then kicking off, or it's just a slip that's occurring as a result of the gait or my turnover on this particular foot. On the left foot, which is a little bit more stable, again, kind of similar as we can see up here in the top area of the shoe. The wear is still pretty okay at 100 miles deep. We just have this kind of burn on the outside here and then that front area there. Just going to continue monitoring, but yeah, this entire like mid patch right here, which you would assume is going to be taking the brunt force of the shoe, is in pretty good shape. So nothing too concerning at this point with that regard. So at this point, I think a lot of the theories we originally had with the shoe being an awesome daily trainer still hold correct. And from personal experience, I really like the consistency of this shoe. If you're tying the shoe properly, you're running with it at a regular pace, you're not trying to like blow up some tempo intervals or some threshold kind of materials. If you're running on the treadmill with this, it's comfortable. You're not going to feel any sort of strain or beat down from that type of running as well. And yeah, overall, I think it's in a good shape at 100 plus miles. But the one concern I have, which was kind of a my mistake thing, but based also on the trend analysis with other shoes, it's something that shouldn't have happened nearly as bad as it did, right? So what happened was I took the shoe for a run once where I don't think I tied it down nearly as well as I wanted to. And I went for like a 5.5, 6 mile run, and the next day, both of my peroneal tendons and like ankles were absolutely beat to bits. Like, they were sore, I didn't want to run, but I still ran, and I like kept them slow after that point. And I did that in this shoe, right? And for most people, they'll be like, yeah, Phil, no duh. Like, if you don't tie the shoe down properly, you're not going to have the proper lockdown, and you're not going to have the appropriate stability when running. But it's worth mentioning that I have done this in other shoes, such as like the Boston 11 in particular, and I've also done this in the Vaporfly Next% 2, the 3, and I think my first pair of Alpha Flies. And what happens is, like, those shoes are a little bit more quote-unquote forgiving in the case that if they're not locked down properly, no big deal. We have support in the shoe. It's going to just do fine. It's not going to be a big deal. But in this particular shoe, that lack of support is going to hurt if you're not properly locking it down. And that's been like the major, it's not a con, it's like a me problem, of course, but again, it's just something worth bringing to you, that if you're like one of those people who doesn't tie their shoes down properly all the time because you're, I don't know, maybe you have like a swollen ankle, or your feet are swelling up from a run, or you have a thicker sock and you have to loosen the shoe a little bit, like be conscious of the fact that you may still need to make sure that you are locked and secured in the shoe, because it is supposed to be a faster shoe with a carbon plate, so you already have this additional brunt force of the carbon plate. We'll put that in quotes. Again, it's going to be like a substitute, whether it's a nylon plate or something of that sort. You're going to experience that force, and then you're going to experience the ground in a more unstable fashion, because your ankle is sort of rolling in the shoe and kind of, that's like the main concern there. Just make sure you're locked down so you're not experiencing any sort of ankle rolling, any sort of additional impact due to that. You're not experiencing any heel slippage. That's another piece that was kind of important here, is that if you don't lock it down, you will experience that heel slippage. So just be careful. That's all the major concern is with the shoe. Just make sure you're actually locking this thing down. So other than that, again, it is 100 miles. A lot of Nike shoes that I've had at about 100 miles, I've been like, thank you, we're sending these back. I'm not happy with them. I've done this with one pair of Hoka's already, the Mach X. Pumas, I'm liking these. I'm not returning them by any sense. Like I said, they're consistent. Like, they're not the fastest shoe I've ever put on in terms of a daily trainer, but compared to like the Boston 12, they are just about as consistent. A little bit slower than the Boston 12 because there's a lot more moving parts. It's got a slightly bigger base to the shoe. It's not as streamlined, so there's things to consider there. But the comfort of this shoe is tremendous. So if you want that comfortable daily trainer with a carbon plate, this is probably the shoe I would continue looking at. And yeah, that's, I think, where I want to leave this. I don't want to say all too much just to kind of like drag this on. It's just, yeah, we'll keep it like short and sweet, right? 100 plus miles, so far so good. Make sure you lock this thing down, and make sure you have the shoe in like a rotation. So if you're using this for like 2-a-day runs, and you're like sweating in your feet, you're not like putting on a shoe that's sweaty twice in a row, I guess. It's really the best way to look at it. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or like things you've experienced at 100 plus miles that I may have not discussed, definitely let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I think we're going to leave the video here. So we'll keep it nice, short, and sweet for you guys, just so we're not, giving you useless information. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.